It's the most wonderful time of the year here in the state of West Virginia, and it is Girls State Tournament Week here in the capital city of Charleston. The Girls State Tournament will go on this week, and then the Boys State Tournament will follow next week here in Charleston. But to get us prepped up for this week in the Girls State Tournament, we are pleased to be joined this week by the girls head basketball coach of the George Washington Patriots, veteran head coach Jamie LaMaster. Coach, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
My man, you guys have had a really interesting season. We'll talk about the ebbs and flows of going through a season, getting to this point, but just kind of walk me through this. I don't think a whole lot of people thought that you guys would be able to get to this point with graduating Finley and then Zaniah Zealous, I should say, going down south. But what does that tell you about your team whenever you guys are the underdogs, especially this season?
Well, first off, that's what's made this season so special is I don't think a lot of people did give us a chance. Whenever you lose two first-team All-State players, one in Finley Loan, who's at UNC Wilmington, and a second player, Zaniah Zealous, who was a first-team All-State as a junior, and she moved to Jacksonville, Florida, due to a family a job. So we lost her. He do return three players, but they're all sophomores in Jeriah Pryor, Rayana Breckenridge, and Madison Sosby. Cy Smith, who's a senior, and now I'm bringing up Madison Sosby, and Leah Hostin, who were playing. The bulk of their time was JV last year, and one of them didn't start JV. So we had some holes to fill, but I think it's a credit. It shows the kids resilience. To be able to lose that, still put in the work starting in the fall, and then once we get into the season, we did start a little slow. We were 0-2 to start. At one point, we were 1-5, but then after Christmas, things began to click a little bit, and we've won 13 of our last 16 games, and within that, there was an 8-game win streak to finish at 14-8. And in the state of West Virginia, 14-5. So it was up and down, but I think it was just a matter of taking some time, and then you had to have players to re-identify. They had to understand roles, identify them, and then most importantly, accept them.
Hey, you talk about that 1-5 start. How did you kind of see your team respond following that difficult stretch to start the season, now getting to where we are now?
Well, they never got down on themselves because we can pull out plenty of positives on film on our huddle platform, and also things we need to work on. Now, those first two losses, let's say this: we were 14-5 in the state of West Virginia, and 4 of those 5 losses are teams ranked ahead of me in the state tournament. So you have number 1 Spring Valley, number 3 Parkersburg, number 4 University, who was an overtime loss to open the season, and then number 5 St. Albans, who was our second loss, and that's where the 0-2 start came from.
Talking about this state tournament, what's allowed you guys to play your best basketball in the second half of the season, now playing in the Class Quad A state tournament?
Well, I think we started defending really well. At first we lack size. We do not have a true back-to-the-basket player. So, rebounding is always a struggle. What can you do to try to offset that is that you have to play extremely fast and you have to defend really well. The tempo's got to be up for us. I don't think it's any secret that if you get us in a half-court game and you want to try to pound the ball around the rim, it does cause us difficulty. I'm asking Cy Smith, who's a 6-foot wing player who's never played post in her life. She's down here defending. She's picking up the big every game, so she's taking one for the team in that aspect. But yeah, you just have to control the tempo. And what have they done well? I was asked that the other day. Is that after Christmas, they began to play really fast. They began to feel each other, and if you want to use the word chemistry, started to develop. They could kind of feel where each other were going to be. And then just defensively, it took some time to understand the man concepts. We do things sometimes are a little bit different, but you just have to play it out, and they have to play through the mistakes, and they're very coachable. We do film almost daily. So with the clips and things, so my kids they're good in the fact that they'll accept coaching. They understand that we're not trying to embarrass, call out, pick on. We're here to get them better, and they're here to learn and get better. So that's a combination of those things has allowed us to get to this point.
You mentioned the tempo side of things. I know you guys like to jump out and try and establish that early, but trying to establish it but then also maintain it during a contest whenever a team is trying to get you in a half-court set. From a coach, how do you go about adjusting your tempo throughout the game?
We like to start fast. I mean, we'll trap the tip. I mean, right off. It's a credit to the kids' conditioning because we lift and condition during seasons. I know some people, there's a debate, do you lift or not lift? We choose to. This last part of the season, we remind them that it's like your car. The gas light comes on, and you think there's still something in the tank. So, we're playing 6 kids. They're almost like the cardiac kids. I mean, we're only playing 6, and they are flying up and down the floor and flying around, but it's constant, reminders that you think your gas light is on, but there's still something left in the tank. But when we finish here, let's make sure there's not a drop in that tank. So that's kind of the approach we take.
First round matchup against Parkersburg this week in the Class AAA state tournament. This time around, what do you see from the Big Reds?
Well, we played them on January 31st here at GW, and it was a 75-62 loss. So that's 13 points. I can probably, looking back at the film, pick out 14 points of defensive missed assignments. We were not staying attached to shooters. I had kids switching off the ball, and 2 kids were chasing the kid without the ball, leaving this kid open. So it's just some mistakes that happen. We need to clean those type of things up. And we will have some mistakes. Nobody plays perfect, but it can't be like the first game. We've got to be much sharper on defense. What do I see from Parkersburg? He's got great shooters. He's got solid guards. He does have a big inside, but that's also a big floor. And that's not a challenge to her. I just know that pushing up and down that floor for a period of time can wear on players. And then that building also has an effect on shooters. Now, that can go his way or my way. I don't know what his thoughts on it are, but concerning my team, I feel like if we're not shooting, I have guards that can also get to the rim. They can get to the rim and finish. So I think that'll be something that might be able to help us down there. Defensively, he'll show you several different things. I've even seen on film where he starts in a 2-3, and on the first pass he switches to man. So there's that. But I will say this about Coach Murray: he is absolutely one of the best coaches we go against. He's unmatched in preparation and scheming you. And sometimes he, just based on, like, let's say an inbound set, he knows where you're going before you even call it. I mean, he's that good. He really is. So it'll be a challenge. So preparation will have a big impact on this game as well.
You talk about the preparation side of things. Does that kind of make your guys' scouting report a lot easier whenever you do go up against a team like them in the first round, now having played them during the regular season?
Yeah, no, I think there's 2 schools there. It used to be the thought was you'd like to get to state tournament and play an unfamiliar opponent. I don't mind playing a familiar opponent. I mean, 4 of the 8 teams are MSAC teams. So having played them before, we do have a film on them. We have our previous clips. I don't think he's changed a whole lot, but we've watched every game that they've played. So, and we've broken every game down with the help of huddle assist. I don't think there'll be any surprises. The surprise factor goes out the window. I think it'll be 2 great programs going at it with a chance to one of us from the MSAC be in the semifinals.
Yeah, along that line, I mean, that's a really good point by you. Just the strength of this conference this season. I mean, you talk about U2, you have Spring Valley as the #1 overall seeds. St. Albans got into the state tournament as well. What does that tell you about this conference and where it's at? Because you've been in this conference and in this valley for a long, long time. What does it tell you about where we're at this year?
It tells you it's the absolute best conference in the state of West Virginia, is what it tells you. And all you have to do is look at the programs in this conference, the coaches in this conference, the players in this conference, and if you ever doubt it, come watch a couple of the top 2 teams in this conference play, and you'll see all you need to see. It's fast-paced, it's coaches are coaching, players are playing, and it is up and down, and it is a battle night in, night out. And I think that's why most of the time, maybe it's the way it's structured, but you'll see, maybe even half the bracket be MSAC teams, which is this year. One of these years I qualified, and all 4 teams in the bracket were MSAC teams, so it was an MSAC part of the bracket. So, but with that said, it also really prepares you if you also pay attention to your non-conference and you schedule teams accordingly that will challenge you along with the MSAC. You're absolutely ready to go when postseason time comes.
You talk about the bigger floor and the bigger arena playing in the Charleston Coliseum. What's your message to your group? So you did mention Maddie Sosby and Leah Hostin playing the majority of the JV, not seeing a whole lot of varsity last season, maybe not playing a whole lot in last year's state tournament, but what's your message to your group, especially those 2, on playing on a bigger floor and a bigger atmosphere?
Well, I think first, maybe advantage GW. We've been there 3 out of the last 4 years, and those kids have at least made that trip down there, so they have somewhat. They understand what to expect, but it's a whole lot different when you're on the bench and you're in support than being out under the big lights. 3 of my players played into the semifinals last year, but. I'm going to take them down tomorrow just so we can, be around the facility so they can kind of get a feel for the arena, what it's going to be like. We're even going to practice early tomorrow morning, to try to simulate Wednesday's game. At least, I know it's only 24 hours, but just trying to acclimate as best we can. But to get down there and understand that building does have a history. I mean, we'll probably have some shooting slumps. We may come out hot as can be. I don't know. But our message has always been and always will be is next play. Whatever happened the play before, you cannot sulk on that. You cannot pout about that. In terms of you miss a shot, you go to the rim, you think you should have got contact and didn't. The official doesn't call it. It's always next play mentality. But as far as the building goes, or as far as the tournament goes, we just try to relax them. I want to say it's just another game, but it's really not. It's a chance to go from the Elite Eight to the Final Four, but we're not going to make too big of a deal out of it. We will prepare for this game just like we did a game in the middle of the season, the beginning of the season. For example, we're going to start today in the film room with clips, review, and then we'll go into the practice floor. That's what we do every week coming in, so we're not going to change anything preparation style. And hopefully that the nerves, as we get down there to the game, the nerves will work themselves out. One
other question I have before we talk about a couple of your players, talking about the Final 8, as I like to say, the Final 8. What do you see from this year's Class Quad A field? I think number 1 and 2 in Spring Valley and Morgantown may have separated themselves, but I think numbers 3 through 8, it's really competitive, and some of those teams are mirror images of each other, so I expect it to be a really, really competitive 4A field. Let's talk about a couple of your players, and let's start with the leader of this year's group in Jariah. One of 3 double-figure scores for you guys. I think she's averaging right around 24, 25 points per game. 25. Yeah, so just an unbelievable score. She scored 24 in the fourth quarter against Woodrow Wilson. Just talk about her and her progression throughout the course of this season. It looks like every time that I get to see her, whether it be a box score or in person, she just continues to grow in her game and blossom even more. Jariah, she came to us as a freshman, started every game. Has obviously started every game this year. Just some numbers, she's at 25 a game, 8.5 rebounds, almost 5 assists, 4 steals. This season, coming into, I believe, before the regional game, she had scored 523 points this year. So she's approaching 1,000 quickly. She's athletically gifted. But just because she's athletically gifted doesn't mean that she doesn't work hard. She doesn't just rely and lay back on that. She's not a huge fan of the weight room, but she goes in and gets her work in practice. She's up and down, and her ceiling is really, really, really high. I'm not sure that we've seen the best of Jariah yet. Although you take a 1-game sample like the regional game, I think we were behind in that game, maybe around the 4-minute mark. I was watching it the other day. Jariah had 43, but 24 of those came in the fourth. In fact, one of my assistants looked at me and said, "Would you relax? She's not going to let us lose this game." And I kind of waited, and after about the 10th or 12th point in the fourth quarter, I said, "Man, you might be right." And she went out there and she put on quite a show. But so goes Jariah, so goes the Patriots. She has a lot to say about how we're going to play, and if she comes out dialed in, intense, and focused, I think that they begin to feed off each other. So. Talk about Rayana, another double-figure scorer for you guys, averaging around 17 a game. Another guard that averages around 4 steals as well. So having her and Jariah as your 2 guards that are really active defensively. But speaking about Rayana, what's different about her at this point this season compared to where we were at this point a season ago? For Rayana, I think it's nothing more than just experience at the high school level. She plays a tremendous amount of travel ball, but I think there's a difference between sometimes travel ball and school ball. But she came into us in her middle school career. Over 3 years, she only lost 1 game. Unfortunately, that was the championship of her 8th grade year. But she's come in here and she's grown.
she is a natural leader. Kids will follow her, and she wants to do it. But we're talking about 2 sophomores here, but specifically with Rayana, I want her to lead more. She is a level-headed kid. Her emotions never get the best of her. She controls the emotion. The emotion doesn't control her. There are times that she gets fired up, and that's when I like her the best. But I think just her growth is not so much the natural growth in the body and being in the weight room and things like that. I think a lot of it's from the neck up, honestly, and just being willing to take on that leadership role, which she's slowly beginning to do. But she's very reliable, very dependable, very level-headed.
Talking about Saya, the final point we're talking about Saya, averaging 12-7 for you guys at this point in the season. You mentioned how she's a stretch 4, but she's having to go up against the taller, more physical bigs that you guys have played this season. But it just sounds like she never argues. She always is committed to it. She's coachable in a sense. Having a player like that that's willing to do anything to win, and having a player like that that understands her assignment. Talk about Saya Smith and what she's meant this season.
Well, I think it's a credit to her all-in mentality. Another thing we'd like to say here is family all-in or all-in. Right now, she's doing whatever it takes to help us win, and that, unfortunately, is having her go down. Saya is about 6 foot, but she's not physically a bigger player. But she's down there, working in the post, defending. I try to bring as much help to her as I can. But whenever you get one-on-one against some of the bodies in this conference, for example, Parkersburg Center, Allie Daniels, they outweigh her by, a decent margin. So she gets down there and battles, and then I have to bring help as best I can from the backside or double whatever we're doing. As I was reminded at our senior night, then Cy is not only a 4-year senior, she has started every game since she walked in door at George Washington. I just hope this isn't the last one. But just being willing to do whatever the team needs to win tells me all I need to know about Cy Smith, because there's not a lot of players out there that are willing to do that today. They don't like to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and I know that's uncomfortable for her. But she does the best she can, and actually she does a pretty good job.
Well, Coach, good luck to you on Wednesday in your all's first round matchup against Parkersburg, and good luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and we'll see how things work out at 9:30 Wednesday morning.
I hope so as well. That's Coach Jamie LaMaster, the girls' head basketball coach of the George Washington Patriots. Be sure to check out our coverage throughout this week by going to our website, wvgazettemail.com. Follow us on Twitter at GazMailSports, that's G-A-Z Mail Sports. And be sure to follow us on Facebook at HD Media Sports for all girls' state tournament coverage at the Charleston Gazette Mail.